On this episode, we feature a certified tarot master, a paranormal investigator, a psychic medium, author of A Knock in the Attic, True Ghost Stories, and Other Spine-Chilling Paranormal Adventures, and also author of Riding with Ghosts, Angels, and Spirits of the Dead. I'd like to welcome John Russell to the show. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good, Dylan. It's good to see you again. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining the show. I know you're a busy guy these days. Talk a
Oh
little
man.
bit off air about all the different appearances you've been making and things you've been working on, which we'll
Right.
dive into here in a second.
Okay.
What I do want to say is if anybody, any of the listeners out there do enjoy John's work, and if you enjoy this interview that we have, please go back and check out episode 58, Imprinted Energy. It's where we spoke with John about a lot of his talents, a lot of some of his written work and a lot of the things that he's done and experienced. Fascinating interview. So I encourage everyone to check that out if you haven't, and check out his written work. I just finished one of his books here recently, and it's a good read if you're into paranormal. It gives you a little bit of everything. So with that being said, how's it going, man?
It's going good. I'm staying busy as we discussed. I've done like over 70 podcasts so far this year. I'm taking November and December off completely, not from my clients, but from podcasts. I'm just going to take off, spend time with friends and family for the holidays, enjoy Thanksgiving, enjoy Christmas, and then January 2022, get back in the saddle and start it up again. But yeah, doing that and reading for my worldwide clientele. My readings are booked anywhere from 3 to 6 months out.
Wow.
And I'm always taking on new clients. New clients are always welcome. And then I'm working on that third book still. I'm so busy, it's hard getting through this third book, but I'm about halfway through it. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll come out maybe the first part of next year.
Now, what is the third book kind of cover? Can you give us a little bit of
The third
subject
book
matter?
is called 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities. And what it will do, each chapter has one specific spiritual tool or technique. For example, the first chapter is on psychometry. And I define psychometry, tell you what it is, and then I tell you how to learn it step by step. Anybody can do it. And then how to practice it so you get good at it. And then the real world application of it. And I do that for every psychic technique in the book, all 20 chapters. Everyone will be introduced, defined. It'll teach you step by step how to do it and how to practice it so you get good at it. And then the real world applications of it. Because all these things, if you learn psychometry, for example, which is the art of picking up vibrations and impressions from an object, and let's say you're at a party and you hold somebody's ring and you say, oh, you bought this at Macy's during a Christmas sale, and everybody's like, ooh, ah. Well, that's a party trick, okay? But if you get to the point that you can do that, and then you can extrapolate that even further into the real world so that you can discern people's intents, what's going on with things, with contracts, with friends, with situations you're thrust into. You can, extenuate what you've learned and make a real world application of that that's going to help you out. So each chapter will be that way. And I'm really looking forward to completing the book. I've had a lot of people show a lot of interest in this. As a matter of fact, people have tried to buy the book, and of course it's not out yet. And I had one fella call me and leave me a message, said, John, I've been trying to get this everywhere. I can't find it. I said, it's not published yet, so hang in there. But a lot of interest in the book.
Yeah, and that sounds like an interesting read. It's definitely something I'm going to check out. But with
Right.
that being said, like this book isn't just for maybe people who seem to have extraordinary abilities, right? Because it's kind of, is it something that like the average guy can kind of learn and
This is
maybe
for the
in
person
develop?
that's the average person, no experience, no real understanding of any paranormal techniques. And they want to learn and they want to try and they want to experiment, but they don't know how. And this is going to take you by the hand and lead you step by step on how to do it. So you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have experience. You don't have to know anything at all. This book's going to take you by the hand, introduce you to it, explain it to you in enough manner that you can figure out what's going on, how to do it, how to learn it. And you don't need anything else. The book will walk you through it step by step, teach it to you step by step, and then you can practice it. And so you're free to pick and choose from any or all of the techniques in the book. Maybe something doesn't appeal to you, you don't like it, or you're scared of it, don't do it. Right. Skip to the next one. And you can learn all the techniques and practice them all, or you can pick one or two and just practice those. So it's my wife calls it a psychic toolbox. You can open up and take out what you need to fix whatever's going on. So that's
you mentioned practice. I think that's important, right? Because it does. That's what it is. It does take practice to get good at it, right?
It absolutely does. You know, people. I tell people all the time. People ask me, and I tell people all the time. You know, I've been a psychic since I was 5 or 6 years old, and I began to read professionally when I was 18. And so now I'm 67, so 50 years as a professional psychic. Read for clients in over 40 countries, have a worldwide clientele. And to this day, I strive to learn more, to practice more, to understand more, to do more, to study more. You never master anything. You never learn it all. And it takes constant work and constant practice. And even if you have a gift, let's say that you're gifted to be the fastest sprinter in the world. Well, if you're sitting on the couch watching TV and eating popcorn, come time to go out on race day, you're going to lose. Even though you've got all the perfect genetics, the perfect body, the perfect gift, the perfect skills to be the fastest sprinter in the world, because you haven't practiced, you haven't gotten out there and done it. You know? So any gift takes work. You have to practice it. You have to stay with it, and consistency is the key.
Now, is it similar to that? Like athletics, like for example, everybody could shoot a basketball, but you know, not everybody's Michael Jordan, you know, but I mean, he also, I mean, as gifted as he was, he put a lot of practice and effort into his gift, right?
Exactly right. And that's a super, super analogy, Dylan. That's a good analogy because it is exactly like that. We can all throw a basketball. Most of us, like me, are going to miss the hoop 99% of the time. But somebody gifted, like you point out, like Michael Jordan, he has that gift, has that talent, but he worked super, super, super hard to refine and perfect that gift and talent. And then he practiced that so he could stay at that level consistently. And so it is like that in the paranormal realm. Some people are going to have varying degrees of psychic talent and ability. And, you know, you have to aspire to your level. You'll find your level. And you do what you can, you learn what you can, you be happy with that, and you'll be satisfied with that. Some people are not going to be able to take the tools and techniques as far as others. But what matters is that you can learn enough that you can make your life better and improve your life and, and maybe help others in the process.
Absolutely. And I think there may be a lot of readers out there that are pleasantly surprised at how maybe much psychic ability they end up making, you know, having after, you know, using your tools and practicing them.
I agree. Yeah. I think it's a matter of, you know, a lot of people don't know where to start. They don't know how to start. There's a lot of goofball information out there, to be honest, and they get a hold of that and it confuses them. And it's like, okay, well, I know there's something here, but what do I do and how do I do it? And that's the great thing about this book. This book comes from my personal experience, what I've learned and practiced successfully over the years, and what the other side has taught me directly over the years. And like I say, I take you by the hand, walk you step by step through it, and it takes all the mystery, the nonsense, the tomfoolery, the confusion. It strips all that away and says, okay, look, here it is. Here's what it is. Here's how to learn it. Here's how to practice it. Here's the real world application. So I think people will find it a breath of fresh air.
And I love that. And I don't think, I don't know what it is about society or the way that sometimes psychic mediums are portrayed, but I mean, there's a lot of proof and evidence out there that, you know, their psychic ability exists. I mean, for example, like remote viewing, it's fascinating to me, people that can remote view and do things like that. And it's proven, like they can prove that, like, and our government knows it too, right? I mean, they study it, they've used it. Yeah, they've used it. So awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff. You wanted to talk about cloud busting. What exactly is cloud busting? That's a term I have I've never heard that term before.
I know, it's a real old term that goes back a long, long way. This is like, I'm 67 now, so this goes back like to my teenage years, my middle teenage years. And this is a technique that nearly everybody knew during that time frame. And I don't think, like you, hardly anybody knows what the heck you're talking about now when you mention that. So cloud busting is an old technique that you go outside on a bright sunny day, and it has to be still, not a lot of wind, and you want a few small puffy clouds in the sky. And you sit down and you focus on one of those small clouds, and from the third eye region of your forehead, whether you believe in it or not, doesn't matter, don't get into the mechanics of it or the dogma or whatever, just visualize from that third eye region in your forehead, the spot slightly above and between your eyes, visualize a stream of energy like a laser beam shooting out from there in a straight line up to that cloud. And as you visualize that as strongly as you can, visualize that energy hitting that cloud and dispersing itself through the cloud and evaporating the cloud. And speak to the cloud as you're doing this and say, you will receive this energy. You're going to dissipate. You're going to break up. You're going to evaporate and disappear. And thank you for yielding to this energy. Now, if you go outside and you sit there and you go, I stared at a cloud and nothing happened, that's what you're going to get. If you sit down and calm yourself and focus and visualize in your mind's eye this energy center opening in your third eye and this beam of energy shooting out from it and this continuous stream to this cloud, and visualize it hitting this cloud and keep it on that cloud and speak to the cloud like I said, in a few moments time, the cloud will disappear. It'll vanish. Okay. Now, this is easy to learn. Anybody can do it. Nearly anybody can do it. Now, obviously, some people are going to have quicker results, easier results than others. Some people are going to have to try a little harder, practice a little longer, but anybody can do it. And it really does work. And it was one of the old techniques from way back when that was one of the psychic tools that used to be taught to people to convince them of the power of the reality of psychic power and of influencing things remotely. And showing them, hey, we can do something. We can do this. We can affect things remotely. So go ahead.
This is interesting. It brings to mind what I've had some people on my show that have talked in the past about, like being able to influence your own reality with your mind, being able to heal the body or do things that are like seem, you know, almost like godlike or amazing, kind of amazing marvels that you can do with your mind. And that's kind of what it is, right?
That is kind of what it is. And then, you know, the idea behind it, behind cloud busting, was just to prove to people that it worked and that we do have this energy. Because the first time you're successful and this cloud just vanishes out of the sky, it's like, it's one of those, oh, wow moments, you know, like, holy cow, this is real. We can do this. This is an actual physical phenomenon that we can learn and we can do. Now, the one time I was sitting out in a state park on a bench by the river, and I had those ideal conditions, and these little white puffy clouds were floating by. And of course, I practiced this since I was a teenager. So I was sending this energy up into the sky where this one cloud was, and it evaporated. And I kept sending the energy there for a while, and then I stopped. And the energy remained in the sky in that area. And for a while, 2 or 3 clouds came by. And as soon as they hit that area in the sky, they immediately vanished. They immediately dissolved. Another one would come by, hit that exact same spot, immediately vanish, immediately dissolve.
That's crazy.
So it is a real technique. It really does work. And the reason I mention it and the real world application of this, and coming into 2021 now with COVID, is if we can do that to a cloud, then why can't we sit down and project this energy toward these little invisible viruses like the coronavirus and bust them up and dissolve them and get rid of this thing, and then use that as an application towards other sickness, illness, and disease. Imagine if we all sit down in mass and take some time during the day to visualize that, to send that energy out and say, go locate these viruses and annihilate these viruses, dissolve these viruses. So you're taking an old technique that's been around forever, that's provable and works, you're updating it and saying, hey, let's cloud bust the coronavirus with this thing. And, you know, the secret to working on a large scale, you look at witchcraft covens, you look at churches, You look at nearly any religion or spiritual belief that you have develops some type of group around it. And the group think, the mindset, the hive mind that particular group develops, whether it's Buddhism or Christianity or Scientology or voodoo or whatever, the idea behind it is the more people that we can get focused and concentrated on this thing, the more power we can harness together and focus toward a particular result. And that's all church is. That's all anything is. That's all seances are. That's all spiritualist meetings are. You go to a spiritualist meeting, people sing hymns, raise the consciousness, raise the vibration. Yeah. You go to church, people sing hymns, raise the consciousness, raise the vibration. What are people trying to do? They're trying to get out of the mundane, worry-filled world and seek this higher dimension and raise their vibrations up to connect with that, and then connect with the minds of others that are there, and then focus all of that energy into one thing.
I believe that.
Let's create the right environment for God to come down and bless us.
That's right.
Let's create the right environment for spirit to come and give us a message. Let's create the right environment for healing or whatever. So, and despite the fact that people have abused this, like obviously the phony big name evangelist with their big meetings and so on and so forth, which is a total sham and a total crock. But in spite of the fact that people have abused this, doesn't mean that it's not real and it can't work. But you have to have the right purpose, the right mindset and everything going in. So the more people we can get practicing this and working on this and committed to this, just think what we might accomplish with this.
Cloud busting. I don't know how true this other thing is that I'm going to compare it to is, but I've heard reports and stories of people being able to almost summon UFOs at will. Is that something that you think is similar to that? Or is that just a bunch of...
No, I don't think it's a similar thing. There may be some similar energies involved, but I don't think it's a similar thing. And I'm aware of people that claim they can do that. I've always said you can't make an appointment with a UFO because God knows I've tried. And the people that claim that they can summon a UFO at will, most of the things I've examined in regard to that, there doesn't seem to be a lot of physical hard evidence that that's what's occurring. I know like people like Stephen Greer have their contact initiative and things like that, and people go out and it's real interesting. I'm not slamming or slandering Stephen Greer, but in the early days, way back when I was living in New York, I got interested in what he was doing. And at the time, he virtually guaranteed that you would interact with a craft and or beings. And as time went on, the information that he gave about what he was doing became more and more metaphysical and less physical. And finally, to the point that it was like, well, your experience is what you experience. You're going to go, we're going to meditate. If you see a light in the sky, maybe that's your UFO. Or if you feel like you've contacted a UFO, there you go.
Yeah.
Or if you think you've seen a being over here in your mind's eye, well, there you go. There it is. And
I'm definitely not sold on that you can summon. I just was wondering what your take was on it and if it was similar. Interesting stuff. So in your book, A Knock in the Attic, you talk about seeing spirit at a very young age.
Yes.
And you had mentioned that it was could be at times very haunting and like almost like living in a nightmare. That must have been hard for you. I mean, how was that going through that experience? And potentially, I'm assuming when you were that young, not even really fully grasping what was really going on.
Right. Well, that was the only time that I have truly ever been frightened. And I attribute that to my young age because I was 5 when that awakening occurred. There was an old black ghost that came and opened the portal to these manifestations and awakened my psychic gift. And he appeared physically in my house. I saw him in a physical body that's as solid as you or I. And it scared me to death because my family was white. We didn't know any black people. I don't think we certainly didn't have any black people living with us. So my assumption as a 5-year-old child was an intruder has broken into the home and I'm in danger and my family's in danger. So I scream bloody murder and the old black ghost walks down the hallway further towards my bedroom, towards me. And I'm just terrified by then. And I mean, he is in a literal physical body. He's not translucent. He's not transparent. He doesn't have any weird glow around him or anything. He's lit up by the nightlight glow in the hallway. And solid as you or I can describe him physically, tell you what he looked like, tell you what he was wearing. And as I screamed again, my parents started to come running. He began to vanish. He began to get translucent, then to begin to vanish. And he kind of vanished like the Cheshire cat is the analogy that I give. He vanished kind of from his feet up and until his head was left, and then that vanished, and that was it. And so that left me for a number of days and weeks wondering, was he going to come back again? Why did he come in the first place? Would he want me to do something weird or frightening? What did he want from me? What was he going to tell me? Was he going to ask me to do something I'd find frightening or whatever? And so I spent a lot of days looking over my shoulder and having a hard time going to sleep. And then all of a sudden it clicked. And it was like he didn't come to scare you to death, although that was a byproduct. He came to open up the portal to these over 1,000 physical manifestations that you're going to experience and learn from, so that you can learn and you can teach and help other people, and they can learn and they can experience these things, and you can establish this communication with the other side that'll be helpful to you and eventually helpful to your clients. And then from there, I discovered that my psychic gift had also been awakened, and I discovered how that came about. And so from then on, I was fine with it. But, it was a process of learning. It was a process of intensive study that, like I say, continues to this day. And it was a constant search for the truth. What's real, what isn't, what works, what doesn't. And it's been a wonderful, exciting journey for my entire life. And I can truthfully say since then, nothing's ever scared me. Nothing's ever panicked me. Nothing's ever felt frightening or weird to me. It's just a normal state of affairs, a normal way of living for me.
Now, do you think your family's acceptance of this kind of helped?
Oh, absolutely.
Helped you from maybe shutting down the...
Yeah, because if I had been in an antagonistic environment where people said, oh, you're not seeing that, you're making up lies, now quit it, or this doesn't happen, or those things aren't real. If I had been in that kind of environment, I probably would have shut it down. I probably would have closed it down. And a lot of people do that because no matter how real or truthful the experience is, and no matter how powerful it is, if you keep refusing it and shutting it down and refusing to recognize it, after a while, you're going to turn yourself off to it, even if it continues.
Yeah, I think that happens. A lot of times
the other side will go, well, okay, and back off. So by virtue of me being in an accepting environment, I think that nurtured it and helped it to grow and helped me to get to where I need to be.
I do think that probably likely happens a lot in children, who have maybe a little invisible friend, or they tell their mom and dad, hey, I seen a monster under my bed or in my room. Exactly. And, oh, no, you didn't see nothing. It's okay. Everything's, it runs in your family too, right?
For generations, my family's had a little bit of a psychic gift at least, and some paranormal experiences and an interest in the paranormal, the psychic realm. But with me, everything just went through the roof. I got like all the gifts, all the abilities, all the experiences. It exploded with me. And why? I don't know. Why was I chosen to have all of the experiences, all the gifts, all the abilities? And I don't know, but I'm glad that I was, because it's been a really great life. I've had so many incredible, fascinating experiences, and I've been able to share those with others, and I've been able to help thousands and thousands of clients all around the world and make their lives better and enrich their lives and help them. It's really funny talking about that, because just today we just moved, and I was going through some old papers that I found, and there were a lot of emails that clients had sent me that I had printed out talking about their readings and the detail in the readings I'd given them and how accurate that had turned out to be and how it had changed their lives for the better and enhanced their lives and how amazing it was to them. I was like, oh, wow, this is so neat to find right now, because I'm still reading for a worldwide clientele, and it's always nice to see that validation and to find that.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole thing's been about from day one, is helping people that way.
I do think too, if you do have a psychic reading from a good psychic such as yourself, I think it's important for the sitter to maybe, because I've had one to the point where like everything didn't happen all of a sudden. It took a couple years of time to realize that they nailed a lot of the stuff that they had mentioned.
Exactly right. Exactly
and I think
right.
even some of it didn't make any sense at all to me at the time.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, what the hell? No, you got the wrong person here.
You got the wrong guy. Yeah.
And then,
exactly.
Going back, I had them conversations recorded, and, I've listened to them a few times, and now I look back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were pretty accurate, which is,
that's a
pretty
very,
amazing.
very good point. And I've had that happen throughout my entire life with my clients. And, to the point that, and I try and give, as the other side gives me specific time frames for my clients, I give those to my clients. And I always tell people, I say, write down what I tell you and refer back to it. And it's amazing the number of times people forget things. Or I remember this one lady, I had given her first reading ever. And she was just amazed and so happy with it. And as we were ending the reading, she worked for my credit card processor, my very first credit card processor. And I told her, I said, you're going to move to Nevada and I think Las Vegas. And I said, you're going to open up your own business in this field and you're going to make more money than you've ever made before. And she started laughing out loud. And I said, what is it? She said, John, she said, up to now, she said, I have been amazed. But she said, honey, let me tell you something. She said, I have no intention of moving, and especially not to Nevada. I don't like Nevada. And to open up my own business in this field would require way more capability in a lot of genres than I have. And I'm pretty much topped out money-wise at the end of this field. And I said, well, do me a favor. I said, write those 3 things down and then get back with me. And I think I gave her a time frame for all this happening. So it was however many weeks or months or whatever it was. She called me back one day and she said, John, I said, yeah. She said, I moved to Nevada to Las Vegas. She said, I opened up my own credit card processing firm, and I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life. And I said, oh, that's awesome. She said, I just had to call and tell you that. And it just still blows my mind. She said, the reading itself was mind blowing, but then to have this actually happen when I was like, no, there's just no way. And I thanked her for calling and letting me know. And she said, what was really wild was that after I had done all this, my girlfriend said, hey, didn't that psychic tell you all this was going to happen? And she was like, oh, yeah. She had totally, completely forgot that I told her that. So the girlfriend reminded her, and then she had to call me up and tell me. So, yeah, people forget a lot of things.
Yes,
people
don't
relate to things at the time. And I always tell people, I said, look, here's the approximate time frame. Write it down, check it out, go back and check on it and get back with me. And, 80-90% of the time, it happens that way.
I love it. All right. Speaking of family, it's going to be a little bit of a touchy subject for you probably, but it's something that I read in your book that kind of hit me personal, that I feel I can relate to what maybe you were going through, or I just kind of want to get your thoughts on it. You talk about your father's passing and that it touched you in a particular way. You had mentioned that he was like rugged and it was kind of a surprise to you.
Exactly.
Well, with me, when I was younger, I always viewed my dad as like this big, strong, invincible, indestructible person. And when he passed away, it was like, it caused me to view death in a way that I guess I had to look at my own mortality and understand that, like, we're all going to go, because if he can go, I can go.
Exactly.
What was that passing like for you? I know it had to be tough, but like, was it similar? Did it change your view of death, despite the fact that you have these psychic abilities and understanding of kind of the dead that, you know, most people don't?
It did, Dylan, because it's real easy to talk to a client and to say, hey, spirit tells me that you need to be close to your dad because he's going to be gone soon, or however spirit communicates that to me to get across to that client. And it's a world of difference to do that externally and then to experience it in your own household. And like I say, my dad was a rancher, stock farmer, rode horses, was tough as a bear, owned a bar, kept a blackjack and a hammer behind the bar, and wasn't afraid to break up fights, that kind of thing, right? So in my mind, you know, balls of steel, feet of steel, hands of steel, and then boom, he's gone. And it's like, oh my God, you know, it's like this person that I thought was so brave and strong and courageous and virtually indestructible, just poof, wiped off the face of the earth, just gone like a wind, blew him away and gone, you know. And being psychic, there was an immediate communication from him from the other side, but that didn't lessen the pain of his physical absence and the shock of his physical absence, you know, because this was a guy, he had, when I was young, I tried to get into baseball, and my dad was a minor league baseball player and was destined for the majors.
Oh, wow.
And he blew out his shoulder and his arm and part of his back, and that ended his career. He was never able to play again, and he never got over that because he would have been destined for the majors. And the shocking thing to me was, and he was an older guy. He was 30 years older than my mom, and he adopted me. He was my biological father, so he adopted me. And the shocking thing to me was, with those injuries and at his advanced age, we'd go out to play catch, and he'd lob this ball to me, and I'd go, come on, Dad, come on, throw it hard, man, throw it hard. And I had a big padded catcher's mitt, and he'd rear back and not even give it everything and throw that, and it would hit the mitt, and I'd drop it and pull the mitt off and start rubbing my hand. You know, I was like, my God. So this was the kind of power that he had, even at an advanced age and with all these injuries that had ended his would-be career. And then just to see that just poof, just vanish, you know, it was like, oh my God, you know. So we get to this reality of, yeah, the Reaper's coming for us all, you know, and that's the first recognition, like you, that I had of it as well. It's like, oh wow, you know, if Dad can go, I can go, you know. The Reaper can find me just as easy. And like you say, that's when you begin to connect with your own mortality and begin to examine these things on an even deeper issue. And even if you have a psychic gift, have all this communication with the other side, you know, death always hurts, death always stings, and there's always that grieving process. And it's something you don't ever fully get over, I don't think, no matter what your belief system is. And to realize that happens, that comes upon you, and you have to deal with that someday that's going to be you. It puts things in an entirely different perspective. Exactly,
it really
right.
does. I think it can be definitely scary when you first start taking a look at it. But I think if you analyze it enough, and if you have a good foundation of spirituality, I think it can be freeing in a lot of ways.
It
when
can
you accept
be,
death,
and then
you know?
the more that I've lived with it, you know, I've held the hand of the dying as they crossed over, as they died. I've done all those types of things, and preached funerals and ministered to the sick and dying, done all these things. And a lot of it, to me, as I get older, I see what appears to me to be the uselessness of it. And there's so much pain, and there's so much suffering in death, and there's so much loss and grief and trauma. And the older I get, it's made me mad. I don't fear it as much as it's made me angry. And I went, and I write about this in my first book, Writing with Ghost Angels, the Spirits of the Dead. I went to the famous Bonaventure Cemetery over in Savannah, Georgia. And I was trying to get some spirit photographs, trying to get some EVP. And I was out by the Willamette River behind the cemetery. It's a gorgeous cemetery, and a beautiful river runs behind it. And I turned around, and there was this tiny little grave about 2 feet long. And this child had died at, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, something like that, in this little 2-foot long grave. And, I've been a biker since age 15, right? And I've been in my fair share of scrapes and all this, and bars and blah, blah, blah. So, hardened, grizzled old guy, right? Tough old biker. And I saw this little grave, my heart broke. I just fell to pieces, man. I was like, my God, imagine, waiting for your first child, and oh boy, here's our kid, and he's growing up, and what's he going to be, and think of all the things we're going to teach him and how much we love him. And then poof, 5 years, he's gone, And the thought came to me that would the parents sit there and think, well, if we do meet him on the other side someday, if we do see him on the other side someday, is there another transition process there we don't know about where we lose him again? So all these things are running through my head, and I'm sorrowful, I'm grief stricken. I'm like, God, at the time I was in my 50s, and I was like, here I am, this grizzled old biker. I don't deserve life anymore on this planet than anybody else does. Here I am still living and rooting and rutting and drinking and carrying on, riding my motorcycle 1,800 miles a month. And this little kid never got a shot at life at all. And it angered me, and it hurt me. And more than anything, I just felt anger that the Reaper's scythe could fall on someone that young. And so I got out my recorder, and I said, damn. And I meant it as a curse for the Reaper. It's like, how can you take this little kid, man? And so I got out my recorder, and I said, is there anybody here that wants to say anything? And I let the recorder run, and I shut it off. So I rode back home, and I examined all the photos I'd taken, didn't see any ghosts, although I could feel the presences there, and started listening to the EVP. I'd recorded like 9 or 10 EVP and didn't get anything at all till I got to that last one where I was standing over that little grave. And I had said that curse, that damn, right before I started the recording. And there was a voice on the EVP, you can hear as clear as a bell, and it says, are you angry? So somebody invisible that could hear me or read my thoughts or whatever knew what I was feeling and sensing at that grave, and was like, hey, are you angry? And I was like, yeah, I am. So there's this strange continuum, this connection with the other side, and the others can look at us, and people can try and tell you, well, it's no big deal, we live on, we'll see each other on the other side, whatever, but it still hurts. It's still a loss, it's still grief. And depending upon the process the person goes through to get to the other side, it can be so traumatic and so devastating. And so even the best and the strongest of belief systems kind of falters when you go through this.
It really does. And I've always had a soft spot for that kind of thing too, like seeing, little kids with cancer or kids that die, that like you said, didn't get a full chance at life.
Exactly.
And I think one thing that helped me through that is my understanding of death is that in life is that we're here for lessons, and that perhaps, that person can live again at somewhere, some other realms, wherever, here on earth again, or whatever. What is your take or understanding? Because I know you're a spiritual person, and you're a religious guy, right? What is your take on the afterlife, and like what happens on the other side? Do we reincarnate? What are your thoughts? I mean, I know nobody really knows, but
nobody really knows. And my best guesstimate, based on what I've been able to glean from contact with the other side, from people on the other side, is that when you go over, you maintain your memories, your intelligence, your personality, your sense of humor or lack thereof, whatever. People on the other side see what we do here. An example of that was I was on a Texas radio station a number of years ago as a regular, and I was on there once a week, and they had a new DJ come on, and so they were telling her about, oh God, you gotta hear this guy. It's like we've had the psychic on for all this time, and people call in and say how accurate his readings are and all that, and she was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So we all get on the air, and they introduced me to her, and she goes, we're not on, we're off the air right then. She said, well, do you have anything for me? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I said, your grandmother, and I called it either on her mother's or father's side, I don't remember which now, but I said, your grandmother, let's just say it was your mother. I said, your grandmother on your mother's side is crossed over, And I said, you have a little altar, like a little shrine to her in your bedroom in your house. And I said, there's this particular scented candle that you associate that aroma with her. And you've got a picture over there with it. And you light that candle and you talk to her and pray for her almost every night. And she nearly ran out of the studio. She was freaked out. And she's like, oh my God, because that was exactly right. And so the lesson there is that people on the other side still see what we do and what we're up to and how we interact with them. And they hear us. They try and communicate to us the best they can, either through a psychic like myself or dreams or, whatever other manifestations they can bring to us. So that's one understanding of what goes on there. People tell me that there are continued growth lessons, life lessons, if you will, there, that they choose where they're going to hang around and be. There's no such thing as an earthbound spirit, or they haven't crossed over, whatever. If you did, you crossed over, you're there. And you choose where you're going to hang around for how long and why. And our mistake is that we get the impression of a connection with a spirit or a ghost, deceased loved one around an area, and we think, oh, they're trapped here. And they may have appeared for 30 seconds there, and then they're off doing something else, around the world. I mean, we have this little narrow concept of time and space and location.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's part of it. And then beyond that, I've got as many questions as everybody else, and I would like to know, and it seems very difficult for those on the other side to communicate exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
And
I've often thought too, with little kids and stuff like that dying, and even for the parents, the grieving parents of a small child, losing a small child, is that perhaps in energy form or spirit form or whatever you want to call it, if we're eternal, you really can't experience loss in spirit form. Or and I feel like maybe in the physical body, in this meat sack that we're in, that is a lesson, and it is something that maybe people need to experience and go through to grow. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but I mean, looking at it that way gives me a lot more hope than looking at it as, well, they only got 5 years on this earth, and it is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, we have to find some type of comfort and hope there, and believing that we are eternal, that our spirits, our souls, whatever live on, our intelligence lives on. We have to think that there is a reason and a purpose for that. And we try and find meaning in that. And the most dangerous thing there, Dylan, is that we don't fall into platitudes and cliches. It's like an example of that was when I was young. I was very cavalier about things. I enjoyed my gift, but I enjoyed life, and I was pretty devil may care, and I was young, and I was going to live forever. And there were occasions that I relied on platitudes to try and encourage people that were going through difficult times, because I didn't know any better. I didn't know any better than what to tell them. And even if I received information that would have been appropriate and accurate and precise to their situation, in my youth and naivete, I didn't know how to always deliver that. Now I do, but then I didn't. And so I would resort to those platitudes or those cliches, which did more harm than good, because there's no truth there, And for every platitude and cliche you have, there's always an opposite to it, a yin yang to it. Fools rush in, but he who hesitates is lost. So it's like, so if you're relying on cliches and platitudes and all these types of things, you wind up giving people nothing that actually helps them or does them any good. So we're always in that danger zone there of trying to sugarcoat something that really is difficult, and maybe not coming up with something that really is helpful.
Right.
And
right.
The main thing we always have to do is recognize people's grief.
Right.
And then we can try and comfort that grief however we can. But I tell all of my clients, I'll say, look, we all grieve in different ways. We all take different times to recover, and there's nothing wrong with you doing it your way. You know, and my way is not going to be your way. Dylan's way is not going to be your way. Somebody else's way is not going to be your way. You have to find your way through that grief yourself, but you have to experience it. You have to allow it. I tell all my clients that grief is a river, and you're on the side of the bank of that river where you've just lost that loved one. And on the other side of that river is the bank where you're going to begin to feel whole again and feel good again. And to get there, you got to go through that river of grief. That's the only way to the other side. You have to experience it. You have to acknowledge it. You have to curse it. You have to cry. You have to scream. You have to be depressed. You have to have your ups and downs, but you got to go through it, and you got to get there.
You do.
And you do that in your own way. And it's like when my mother died, I've always read full time, even if I had other jobs when I was young. So if I worked a full-time job during the day, I'd come home, read 6-8 hours a night, you know. So I've always been a full-time reader. And when I was younger and I was working a full-time job during the day, my mother died, and my boss said, look, you know, take all the time you need, take off, we've got you covered. And I said, no, I can't. I said, if I take time off, I'm going to sit around and think. And that's the last thing I need, is to sit and think and feel and grieve. I got to keep working. I have to keep distracted. And that was my way of coping with it, my way of getting through it. Now, some people may need to take time off. They may need to go up to the family cabin in the mountains and sit and go, gosh, you know, Dad and I used to come out here and fish or whatever. That may be the way they need to get through it. So you do whatever you have to do to get through the grieving process. And that's one thing we all have to learn, but we all have to go through it. There's no getting around it.
That's
no
well said. I think it's important too in the grieving process is to perhaps important. I don't know. At least for me, it was to find purpose in it, because I really do believe this, that the universe or God or whatever, everything is purposeful. You can find meaning in just about anything. Just like coincidence and synchronicity. Like I'm almost to the point now where I don't even think there is such a thing as a coincidence. Like it all seems synchronistic to me.
It does. There's a lot of synchronicity in the universe. And like you say, some things may not make sense at the time. And then later down the road, they may, finally, we may have a revelation of why something occurred or whatever. But I think a lot of it, you know, I tell people, look, if you want to succeed in this world, meet the world on its terms. The world is a rough place to live. You know, we're going to die. Our loved ones are going to die. Our pets are going to die. We have volcanoes. We have earthquakes. We have hurricanes. We have tornadoes. We have all of these things. It's a rough place to live. It's a difficult place to be. And that's why it's so important that we project all of the positive energy that we can, that we band together and encourage each other, heal each other, and help each other emotionally as much as we can. And one of the things we've lost over the years, Dylan, is we've lost that concept that there is the other out there. There are nature spirits. There are invisible beings that are not ghosts. They're not human. They've existed for a long time on this planet. They have their interaction with the planet and with us and with the other energies that are out there. And we've lost that concept to our peril. And one of the most dramatic things that I ever saw, this was a documentary on TV, and it wasn't a ghost documentary. It wasn't a psychic documentary. It wasn't a paranormal documentary. It was just a plain documentary. And it was about a volcanic eruption. And this volcano erupted and they started evacuating everybody. So this guy said, no, I'm not going to evacuate. He said, I'm going to take, now here's something that people can cotton on to. For some reason, spirits like gin. Spirits have an affinity for gin. I don't know why, but they do. So if you're making offerings or you're invoking a spirit, or you need help, pour some gin out to them, say, here you go. So anyways, this guy takes 4 bottles of gin. I'm pretty sure it was gin, but he had 4 bottles of alcohol, and he set them out at each corner of his property, which was in the path of the lava flow. And he said, Pele will honor this, the goddess Pele of the volcano. He said, Pele will honor this, my home will be spared. And so the documentary is showing this. They had a camera set up there somehow. And here comes the lava flow toward the guy's house. Well, they made him get out, but they leave this camera behind. And here comes this lava flow. Now, this is on TV, on a mainstream documentary, like History Channel, Science Channel, something like that. So here comes the lava flow down. It hits the front of the guy's property. The lava flow splits in two around the liquor bottles in the front, goes down the side of his property, around to the back, and merges again in the back and keeps flowing, leaving his property intact. The scientist watching this went, "We have no clue." We have no explanation. And eventually, over a period of time, it broke through that invisible barrier, as it were, created by that offering, and came on. And the guy said, if I had been allowed to stay and had been allowed to sacrifice more offerings to Pele, my house would have been spared. So now that was a mainstream documentary, and the scientist said, we have no clue, because here comes this lava flow, splits in half right at the front of his property where the bottles are, goes down the side, rejoins in the back where the bottles are, and goes on its way. And the lava keeps flowing that way. And so the object lesson therefore says, hey, folks, there's a lot out there, that we don't understand. We think we're the only guys on the planet. There's all kinds of entities and intelligences and energies on this planet. And we've lost that respect, that connection, that interaction. And when we begin to respect that and entreat that and invoke that and rediscover our connection with that, we're going to be in such a much better shape than we could ever imagine if we will only reconnect with that and can do that.
Absolutely.
So that's an object lesson for us to learn.
Wow. That's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. All right, real quick before I let you go, you had mentioned the government report on the Navy sightings.
Oh, yeah, the UFO report.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it? I just want to get your take on it real quick. I know it's kind of off topic of what we've been talking about today.
Fine. But because I've had so many UFO experiences and things over the years. And I think that there were some boom, go the dynamite moments in the report. Chief for me was that our government finally admitted that these are physical objects. And they captured them on multiple sensors, not just one, not just two, but multiple sensors, plus trained pilot eyewitness accounts and so on and so forth. So they've acknowledged that. The other thing that the government has increasingly acknowledged is they don't just come right out and say it this way, but they skirt right up to the edge of it. It ain't ours, and it ain't anybody else's on this planet. Okay, so the government has basically admitted that. Now, here a while back, according to the American Military News, another mainstream news source, the American Military News, the Pentagon admitted that it had anomalous UFO debris in its possession that it was testing. Okay, so here's some boom, go the dynamite moments that we need to really take seriously. It's like, what the heck, man? Now, there was some friends of mine and podcasts that I've been on with these guys organized this thing called the Big Phone Home after E.T., right? E.T. Phone Home. The Big Phone Home, and they did one, and then they did two. In the second one, they got a congressman from Tennessee. And the congressman said, basically, the government kind of slipped, leaking out this little teeny report. There's not a lot in it, but there's enough to make you go, And then, of course, Congress, the White House, whatever, they got the full classified version. And there was a leak there from someone that said it was like a science fiction movie. They said it was just bizarre and incredible. So this congressman from Tennessee said, the government kind of goofed up releasing this. It made a little chink in their armor. And what they may not have realized is that if we will come together as an American people right now and push like we've never pushed before and demand answers, we'll get it, but only if we do it right now. And if we keep the pressure on till it happens. He said, if we goof around for a year or two and let them slide with this thing, we're going to be back to square one. We're never going to get anything. Now, this is the congressman from Tennessee. And he's talking about how politics work, how all this goes down, and how the good old boys control everything in power. And he was talking about this one particular individual, and he said there was this, cigar in one hand and bourbon in the other, good old boy that's been around forever. And he said, he told me one day, he said, listen, he said, I call the shots. And he said, congressmen are going to come and go, but I'm still going to be here. And he said, you know what? That guy's still there, and he's still calling the shots. So we have to realize this is what goes on in this scenario. And he was talking about the difficulty of revealing things. And he talked about, look, he said, people in certain parts of the world kill you for a carton of cigarettes. And he said, what's it going to be like if you're threatening a man's wallet that makes millions or billions per year or whatever, and you're demanding that some type of disclosure or something comes out? He said, that's when, if I reveal that, I commit suicide by 2 shots in the back of my head. So he's acknowledging the reality of all this. And he's saying, folks, if we want to get something done, now's the time, and we got to come together and we got to demand it.
See, my thing is, I don't know. I just question the motives behind the report. Why release it?
Strange. The timing is very strange, very odd. Why now?
Why release it? And why release it? I mean, they've known, at least as far as we know, at least since Roswell, right? They've known that UFOs exist. I mean, probably before that.
Oh, I'm sure, because one of the things that always got me was the government always gives us the party line of, well, we don't know what's going on. We don't have the technology. We don't have the capability. Well, my answer to that, I saw, again, a mainstream documentary on TV a long time ago. And one of our former CIA heads was talking about the SR-71 Blackbird. Now, for younger people that may not know what the Blackbird is, that was our premier spy plane. It flew so high that it flew in subspace. And it flew so fast that there was nothing on the planet that could catch it. No rocket, no missile, no plane, no nothing. So the SR-71 Blackbird, look it up online, it's a marvelous machine. And he was talking about the Blackbird and the cameras on board the Blackbird, because the Blackbird used to fly over Russia and Cuba and every place else, take pictures as it flew. And it flew in subspace, and it flew at these ridiculous speeds. And even then, the camera was able to capture all this with absolute clarity. And so he says back then, this is the CIA head speaking about the Blackbird. He said, back then, when the Blackbird was active, he said, you could take a golf green and go lay out a couple of golf balls 2 feet apart. And as the Blackbird flew over its speed in subspace and shot a photograph of the golf green, when you developed it, you could read which one was the McGregor and which one was the Titleist. And he said, imagine what we can do now. And that was decades ago that I saw this damn documentary. So, to say that our government doesn't know what's going on or doesn't have the capability or this, it doesn't wash. It doesn't make any sense. So the real question becomes, why does the government hide this? What's going on? Why are they concealing it? And that's the real thing that we have to get to. And that's what we have to keep pushing toward. And people are like, well, if there's disclosure and we know there's aliens, we know this is going on, there's going to be a worldwide panic, the church will collapse, all this. No, it won't.
People aren't going to know.
It's like, I tell people, I say, look, I'm from West Texas, so I can say this. There's going to be some good old boys from West Texas loading up the shotguns going, yeehaw, let's go get some aliens. Yeah. And then there's going to be some Christians surrounding the first saucer they can find and joining hands and going, Jesus, save these alien souls. I mean, there's going to be varied reactions, but society's not going to collapse.
No, it's not. I think that's just an excuse or
it is.
There's definitely reasons. And I mean, perhaps some of it's, technology that they're working on for weapons of, that they don't want other governments to know about. I mean, that's possible. And I get that for security reasons.
We get a hold of, we want to weaponize.
It just seems that's just like the human way. It's so disturbing. It's so disturbing.
Let's don't go heal the little kids in the St. Jude Cancer Ward. Let's see if we can develop a ray gun that'll knock out a city.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So,
We're
so
insane.
backwards. So
Yeah,
backwards.
it is.
It's terrible. So do you have a timeline on when the new book's coming out, or when can we expect to watch for?
Oh gosh, hopefully I'm going to try and shoot for March of next year. I
Okay.
really am. And like I say, I'm so busy right now that it's hard carving out time to write. We just moved to boot and all that and recovering from that. So, but I'm going to try my best. Like I say, I'm halfway through it. So if I can crank out the time to buckle down, like I say, I've got I think 14 more podcasts to go this month alone, plus my readings from my clients. So when I can get into the holidays a little bit, maybe I'll have a little time to kind of throttle back and focus on the book some, and maybe hopefully get it out by March.
Well, yeah, listen, when you get the new book out, reach out to me. I'd love to, I'll get it on Amazon or wherever, and I'll read it. And then maybe we can have you back on and we can talk about the new book.
Absolutely. Love to.
Because it does sound like an excellent read and something that I would love to kind of work on my toolbox, I guess, so to speak.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to help a lot of people. I think you'll find it really interesting.
Awesome. Yeah. Where can the listeners find you and find the work that you've done and what you're doing?
If they want to get a reading or information about a reading, go to johnrussell.net, 2 S's, 2 L's in Russell, johnrussell.net. And for information on the books, they can go to writingwithghosts.net or aknockintheattic.net. And those books are available at Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Target and Walmart carry them online. A lot of mom and pop bookstores carry them online. 8 Books, a lot of independent bookstores carry them. So they're available all over.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for coming on the show.
Dylan, I've enjoyed it so much. Thanks for having me back, and we'll do it again.